Hello, I'm Canon pilot. Welcome to my YouTube channel to a set of videos regarding using full frame lenses on the GFX. Now we'll cover the Canon 50 f1.4 USM. It's a rather cheap lens, not the best in terms of sharpness and technical qualities, but it's a traditional lens. It means that it won't be sharp at all at 1.4, but it will give us some sort of look that it's kind of hard to reproduce on more technical lenses. And with the aperture at f2.8 and closer, it will give excellent result throughout the frame, even on the GFX sensor. Now let's go to the repro stand and see how the vignette works on this lens. Okay, so this is the Canon EOS 50 1.4 USM. It's an old lens, and we'll see how it performs. There's no crop. The camera is on full 44 by 33 millimeters sensor, and now we are at f1.4. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pull focus. Now the focus is at 1.5 meters, but if we'll pull it all the way back to infinity, you can see the vignette is getting a bit darker, and that's because as closer we are to the infinity focus, the vignette is more pronounced. Now let's go to the minimum focus range of 45 centimeters. You see the vignette is almost completely gone. And that's a good thing to know. It works mostly with more traditional double Gauss lenses, the traditional optics design. And the Canon 50 f1.4 is just this kind of lens. Back from the repro stand, now let's check some sample images taken with this lens. Okay, so here we are with a couple of images that I took with the Canon EF 50 1.4 USM at various apertures and with various subjects. Some of them are in different crops, but we'll of course open up the crops once we're in the develop mode. Usually I use the lens as a 1x1 or 6x6 if we're getting traditional, or as a panoramic lens. So as you can see, most of the images are shot at 1x1 ratio or the panoramic ratio. So let's start with this night photo. At first glance we can see it looks good. No vignette to speak of, but that's the square format, the 1x1 ratio. This is on f5.0 at 1:20 with the IBIS on. We can punch in and see the details, which looks quite fine. Very high ISO, 12,800. But though there is some noise, we see the details looks quite good. I think the lens performs excellent. Let's check the corners. So it's hard to tell if it's out of focus or it's the corner degradation. And let's open up the crop so we can see the entire image. Okay, so as we see with the entire image, we do have some hard pitch black vignette. Let's check into it. If we lift the exposure up, we can see that the corners are pitch black. We can't do anything about them. We can go to the lens correction setting and either try and fix it manually by pulling the vignette, but as we can see, some corners are irreparable. Or we can also go to the profile mode and then manually dial in the Canon 50 f1.4 and pull the vignette all the way to 200, which sometimes work for this kind of imagery. But as we see at f5, we have pitch black corners, unusable, so you're gonna have to crop. But otherwise, excellent image. We can crop to 4x5 and we'll get some corners. Maybe 16x9 will work. Yeah, 6x9 works. And of course, tighter panoramic crops will work just the same. Let's put it back to 1x1 crop. Pull it all the way up. And let's move to the next image. Also a night shot, but now with ISO 1600 at f2, 10th of a second. Let's check the details. Quite sharp in the middle of the frame. Let's go all the way up to the edge, and we can see the edge degradation of most 35 full frame millimeter lenses on such a large sensor. When we get close to the edges, the image get a bit smeared. It is f2 and it is an old lens. It won't happen this much with newer, more modern lenses, but there is some degradation we have to be aware of. Let's open up the crop. Here we can see we do get vignette, but we can actually live with that kind of vignette since it blends into the image in a way. And sometimes I find myself able to work with such vignettes, but I do recommend working in some crop in order to frame correctly, and then you have the option to expand the image. So there is vignette, it's workable, but not that good. Let's try and open it up. And we can see we can get details almost all the way up to the corners, but even without punching in, we can see the degradation next to the image corners. Next one is a panorama at f8.0, ISO 400, fast shutter speed. Let's see the details. So here we can see each and every detail, the texture of the wood, the texture of the concrete, the bush, almost everything. Let's go to the corner of the panoramic frame, and we can see that almost all the way into the corners we have good details, but we do have some sort of degradation at the extreme corners, and this is out of focus, so we can judge that. Let's open up the crop. We can see the hard-edged vignette. This is hard-edged vignette. We have nothing to do about it. And something else we can see here is the effect of the ibis on the vignette. As we can see, the vignette is not symmetrical. This corner here is a bit bigger than the corner down here, and that's because the ibis moves the sensor into a very limited projection of light. And so, if we work at high exposure speed, I would recommend turning the ibis off, because even vignette, symmetric vignette, is easier to fix and easier to deal with, but we do sometimes need the gain of the ibis, so that's a trade-off. But as we can see, f8, we have small corners, but they're pitch black. We have nothing to do with them. We can crop in various ways, which is nice in my opinion. Let's say if we just take a little crop out of the vignette here and out of the vignette here, we still have 10882 by 8162 pixels, which is more than enough and more than any full frame camera that I know of. We do have the degradation in the corners, but that's something that can probably pass in most regard. Even in a gallery, nobody looks at the specific corner of the image, but that's something to know about. Okay, so this is a cityscape image, but the secret here is that this image been manipulated. So I straighten it up just a bit to imitate the effect of a shift lens, and we can see the lines up here. But we do get a high-res image with excellent details. This is f16. Let's punch in and see. Excellent details. I think we can see the hot air degrading the image just a bit. And we can see some of the diffraction effect, but all in all, quite sharp image. We can see very fine details. And we can, of course, play around with the shadows and highlights and whatnot. So the combo of the camera and the lens gives us details galore, almost as much as we would like. Not as much as, let's say, the Fuji 50F 3.5, but we do have the option to work with extremely open apertures to get the depth of field and the subject isolation, as we can see here. So this is on 1.4, extremely fast shutter speed, electronic shutter speed, as you can see with the vehicle here, that's getting completely distorted since it's going through the frame. And this camera doesn't scan nearly fast enough to freeze the vehicle, but the main subject stays relatively untouched. Let's take a look at the full image and the vignette, which is, of course, quite extreme. Okay, so we can see the vignette is extreme, but it's probably something that we can relatively fix well. So let's turn to lens corrections. Okay, so with the manual, we can fix it to a decent level. It won't be sharp in the corners, and we can see some field curvature, and of course the infamous degradation. But it's doable, and it's usable for certain genres of photography. Let's check the profile. Let's take the Canon, the 51.4, and push the vignette all the way to 200, though we have to cancel the manual. Okay, so we pushed the vignette to 200. I think there is some sort of distortion, but it's hard to tell because this is not the kind of image we want to check distortion upon. And we can go to the manual and push the vignette just a bit more. We still have some vignette, but it's not that bad, and we can just crop this tiny corner up. And this is an f8 with the focus set to this area around here. So it's not that further away. So this one is already with a profile on. Let's take the profile off and we'll see what happens. It does distorts a bit and it removes some of the vignette. I think maybe we can push the vignette a bit more, not too much. And we have really the slightest corners for what is quite nice landscape image. So this is the Canon 51.4. It's a very compact, it's a very convenient lens for a walk around. It's very light. Most of the weight sits on the camera itself, which makes the entire set very stable to handheld. And of course, the IBIS will help here as well. But regarding to the IBIS, we'll have to take into considerations. While the IBIS moves, it changes the character of the vignette because it moves inside the very limited light source that it has, and then we'll get some different vignettes between one frame and the other. I think still worth it, but bear in mind. And of course, if you crop to 6x6 or panoramic mode, you probably won't see any of this. So the 51.4, highly recommended for the intended work. Don't expect maximum sharpness at 1.4, not in the middle of the frame, not anywhere on the frame, but very affordable lens, very easy to carry, very light. Not the best build quality, but it will probably hold. I think this specific lens is more than a decade old. So I can highly recommend it. Regarding to price and what you get for it, an excellent choice.